Oh jeez. How do I start this video? Okay, so hi, I'm SonicKick. I'm a Sega YouTuber. You might have known me from this, or you might have subscribed to me because I like to talk about Yakuza every once in a while. 2 months ago, I was on Twitter and the topics feature recommended a tweet to me about a new video from a YouTuber named Positive, now known as Vazquez. This seemed like a well-respected YouTuber, but considering the subject matter, I didn't want to bother at first. It was a video titled Yakuza is for Men, which looked to highlight and discuss the misogyny of the women in the Yakuza series. At first, I didn't bother because I don't like getting into drama, but after a few days, I couldn't help myself and ended up watching this video. And where do I begin? I guess the thumbnail, which literally yells out,
Yakuza is for men!
While showing 4 characters in eyesight, all like a Persona cut-in. Those characters being Karu Sayama from Yakuza 2, Mirai Park from Yakuza 5, reoccurring main character Haruka, and Makoto Makimura from Yakuza 0. What I assumed is that these characters would be focused on in the majority of the video, but 3 of them are only talked about in the intro, while the 4th is critiqued later in the video because the creator is more familiar with 0. GC aims to put a microscope on how these women are handled in their respective games by analyzing them and claiming that they are misogynistic portrayals of women in media. However, in doing so leaves out the context for these character actions and motivations. The video cherry-picks certain scenes and lines to mislead the audience, and in doing so misrepresents the characters, making for a disingenuous analysis. Which is something you shouldn't be doing if you aim to do character study. Context is necessary to understand the action these characters do, and if you haven't played these games, GC's video might be convincing. But just by simply cross-referencing the work, multiple inconsistencies and problems will start arising. I am in no way saying that Ryuga Gotoku Studios should dismiss criticism of their games, especially when it comes to the treatment of women. Matter of fact, I can get behind and agree with the core message of the video. However, upon further viewing by watching this video multiple times, the misinformation in this video needs to be addressed. They have been on my mind for 2 months. This video will feature story and side quest spoilers for all the mainline Yakuza games, and Judgment, so be forewarned. I'll distinguish when spoilers are coming for each game with a marker at the top right of the screen with a timestamp, just in case some people haven't played a certain game yet. I'm just gonna be honest with everyone watching. Making this video was exhausting. The criticism that GC starts off with is Karu Sayama from Yakuza 2, in which he argues that she's a
distraught damsel way in over her head.
This blatantly leaves out the story and events of Yakuza 2, which omits her character motivation and emotions.
Sayama's confidence slowly unravels. At one point, the kind of 2-bit thug she should be able to handle with ease slaps her across the face, and suddenly she's shocked, scared, immobilized. From this point on, Sayama slowly loses any semblance of the character she was introduced as. By the end of the game, she is afraid, unsure, and in need of guidance.
Karu acts the way she does toward the end of the game, not because of the thug attacking her, but because of her unraveling her past, which was her motivation and goal.
The reason for this sudden transformation? She falls in love with our male protagonist.
Her goal is not motivated by romance, at all. She was motivated to find the secrets to her past because of Kiryu's ties to the Tojo clan. She was doing the old keep friends close, but your enemies closer. Karu develops throughout the game because she has mostly seen the Yakuza as evil crime overlords and has had a biased mindset while hunting them down. But here comes Kiryu, who is a complete betrayal of what she's come to know, and why she takes interest in him. In doing so, her perspective and emotions change from every revelation in the story. This is heavily reflected when she finds out that she has Jingwan blood, and comes to a climax when Kiryu reveals that he might have been responsible for her father's death. But in this, it's Kiryu who shows major weakness when he reflects on Karu's words. Kiryu tries to own up to the promise of Karu shooting whoever killed her father, but then it comes full circle. When it's the person who taught her life isn't that simple, the kind man who she accidentally befriended and saved her from death, and over the course of the game, the man she loves. She's conflicted like any other person would be. Her entire world was turned upside down, and now when presented with what she said earlier, she just walks away. But then she utters this to Kiryu.
罪を償うから俺を殺せだなんて。人はね、そんな簡単に割り切って生きてゆけないのよ。
Throughout this journey, she found that killing the people responsible wouldn't give her closure or be satisfying as she originally thought. The third revelation is realizing that the man who's fuming the flames of the Yakuza war is her half-brother. She runs to try and make things right by wanting to talk with him, to end the war. I don't get why people misinterpret this particular scene as a "save me please, Damsel" message because it's anything but. She persuades Kiryu and Date away so she can have the chance just to talk to Ryuji to end the war, now finding out that he's her half-brother. Her motivation was to find her family, and Ryuji is the only living person left. So when she goes to Kamuro Hills, on her own accord and also with a gun, meaning she's willing to defend herself, she can arrest Ryuji and bring herself in. Kiryu, when he sees this goodbye message, gets pissed and on his own volition, goes to Kamuro Hills. She wasn't kidnapped, threatened, or pressured to do something. She wanted to find a way to end this by her own hands.
This woman beats up Yakuza on a daily basis, and suddenly she's confused by Yakuza protocol and helplessly pleading with our main characters to stop fighting.
Kaoru, in the final scenes of the game, pleads with Ryuji and Kiryu because she wasn't there to fight. She's already had to witness her own biological father die, and now her half-brother and the man she loves is going to fight to the death. What is she supposed to do here? Honestly. It's a clear contrast to how she was introduced because she developed throughout the game, and her emotions started to come out more. Her goal was to arrest Ryuji and herself and end the war. Ryuji is surprisingly reluctant to her, but the fight him and Kiryu have is to settle the score. Do you see why she didn't want Kiryu there? Nothing about Kaoru makes her incapable. The game doesn't portray her as defenseless. However, the way you edit this video shows her in this light. In the scene where he points out that Kaoru was scared, she just saved a couple who was getting harassed by some perverted thugs. When they run off, they start doing the same to her, and she is shown defending herself against these thugs. When she gets slapped and knocked down, that's when Kiryu steps in. This is consistent with Kiryu's character, because even if there's someone that can handle themselves in a fight, he will step in if it's an unfair fight, or if any thugs try to jump someone. This even happens in Yakuza 0 when Mitsutatsu is about to get ganged up, but then Kiryu steps in because it's 5 against 1 who are getting ready to jump her. Same case here with Kaoru. Kaoru is also shown to have strengths as a character mentally. Being at the young age of 25, she passed her public service exam at 20 years old and joined the Osaka Police's high-tech crime unit under Foreign Affairs Division as an engineer, and she broke the record by getting promoted to assistant inspector in just 4 years, before becoming the lead detective of Division 4 of the Osakan Police. She is shown multiple times to outsmart characters in the story, like her initial arrest of Kiryu or helping the florist get rid of an inside trader. But also Kaoru isn't going to show her strengths all the time. So let's get into the criticism of this particular scene. Maybe I should go check out that Yakuza 2 video he mentioned.
In other words, Kiryu is flirting with the idea of being someone else. He's flirting with his desires.
Wait, what?
Kazuma and Sayama sitting on a roof. T-A-L.
Keep it together. He points out that this scene on the rooftop with Kiryu and Kaoru is sexist to her character because
Kaoru Sayama is written to be a woman who acts tough, but secretly is a wilting flower who relinquishes her power to a man the moment she falls in love with him. While Sayama is not the first person in the series to be motivated by romance, her portrayal in Ryuga Gotoku 2 was the first time I noticed how aggressively the series needs to make women seem incapable.
But this isn't what it's about. It reflects on Kaoru herself. Everything I just mentioned about her strengths is also a foil to her weakness. In my opinion, GC's critique of Kaoru is inherently sexist, and it's the type of people Kiryu himself critiques in the scene he's talking about. He described that she becomes a
wilting flower
when the context of the scene has her talking about her persona of the Yakuza huntress, meaning this is what she puts on whenever she wants to be taken seriously, not only by her enemies, but by the people in her own police department. She literally hides herself when she is focused on the case. What do I mean? Localization producer Scott Strigark points out that
Kaoru actively hides or switches her accent once she gets swept into the Tokyo mess because she has that inferiority complex about Osaka PD. Makes the roof scene more powerful because she stops hiding it. She talks to Besho and Mama in Kansaiben, but almost never Kiryu.
this is reflected in the subtitles of Kiwami 2 as well, which I will be using for the lines for this scene. In this rooftop scene, her Kansai dialect comes out because she is a little drunk and able to be herself. She doesn't get drunk off her ass, she just opens up a little more. This isn't a sexist portrayal, it's an acknowledgement of what women go through in the workforce, especially in a field as pristine and male-dominated as the police force. She feels like even when drunk with Kiryu, she tries to put up her persona, but she's losing how she honestly feels on the inside. Kiryu says it himself.
人から見た印象なんてその程度のものだってことだ。
He wants Kaoru to be comfortable in being able to open up to him, like he himself has been open with her too throughout the majority of the game. Kaoru should be allowed to be a strong, independent woman as well as a woman who can feel emotion. That was the point of that scene. Kaoru herself is both a physically and mentally strong character, and her learning how to open up to be herself isn't sexist. It's sexist to assume that she became motivated by romance or is incapable in any way. Playing Yakuza 2 from my perspective, she's one of my favorites from the series. What I like is that she's one of the partner characters that follows and fights alongside you a majority of the street fights with their own unique heat moves that Kiryu and her can do together. I saw her as a capable woman who is willing to take adversity head on and also has a kind heart to the people she cherishes. Before writing this video, I was also playing Yakuza 2 alongside with one of my friends who also likes the series, who is a woman. She didn't want to watch the rest of the video because she is playing through the series. She has played Like a Dragon, 1 and 2 on PS2, and just beat 0 and 3 recently. And just to reiterate, just because she didn't watch the full video doesn't invalidate her opinion. In fact, GC is willing to support and retweet opinions of people who like the video who haven't even played the Yakuza games. So her opinion can be valid as well. Just saying. Hopefully this does not come up in part 7 of this video. Her perspective on this segment of the video as a female was,
I'm tired of fleshed out characters called weak characters because they're not physically strong. A strong female character isn't necessarily a physically strong person. Men and people who don't get it usually equate strong female character to physically strong. No, we want someone who has more than that, for goodness sake. Give us emotionally strong, or just someone heckin' interesting. Take Takal, the heckin' echidna. She's a strong character. She wasn't physically strong, but she had empathy and sacrificed herself to save her people. I'm not a weak woman. I work manual labor, for goodness sake. But I'm sick of this one-note strength. Let women be flawed. Let women be insecure. It's human.
both Kiryu and Kaoru are able to show weaknesses at the points of their respective stories. Kiryu doesn't do it when Kaoru does so, but later on when he realizes that he was responsible for Kaoru's life ending up that way, we get an entire scene in Jazz number 2 where he gets stabbed. While some people can miss the point of Kaoru's character, it's actually not uncommon to do so. Now let's see who else is next. Oh no. In my opinion, nothing in this video is more insulting to me on how GC portrays Mireille Park from Yakuza 5. The major issue is that GC only sees Mireille Park as a villain or someone that the game treats as shameful, when she's actually a critique of the idol industry. He argues that,
in return, the world of Ryuga Gotoku spites Mirai Park at every opportunity it gets. It paints Park as this deeply flawed woman who shouldn't be celebrated.
He first points out that
Evil music plays as she describes her life.
you can listen to the cutscene yourself, especially when she's talking about her abortion.
私は自分が妊娠していることに気づいた。すぐに下ろしたわ。当時はあまり迷いはなかった。まだ若かったし、アイドルを続けるためには仕方のない犠牲だって思ったの。夫に打ち明けたのはその後。彼、その時初めて私を殴った。そしてあの人は私の元から去っていった。自分がそばにいたら私の夢の妨げになるからって。私はそれも仕方のない犠牲だと受け入れたわ。でもその後、結婚していた過去があったことを知った事務所は私を売り出すことに躊躇するようになった。いつ爆発するかわからないスキャンダルを抱えたアイドルに大金なんてかけられないってね。予定されていたイベントは次々に中止された。日本ドームで大規模なコンサートやろうなんて話まであったのにね。
すごかったんですね、社長。私、全然知りませんでした。
But it isn't as evil as he describes it. It's actually more of a somber and sad track because she's discussing what she gave up in order to be an idol. He also points out that when her ex-husband slapped her across the face,
she does so in a forgiving manner, saying she probably deserved it.
Now let's actually analyze her life from another perspective and point out why this is wrong. First, why did she have the abortion? She had the abortion because she wanted to continue her career as an idol. But also he completely leaves out the fact she was married to a Yakuza, let alone Goro fucking Majima. And her agency completely blacklisted her, even from that sacrifice. Because she was married, they didn't want anything to do with her and cause a scandal. Because agencies don't want idols to be in relationships to keep up the facade that they are virgins and that a fan has a chance of, being with her. So they'll buy tons of merch. It's completely inconsiderate, especially given how much each idol sacrificed in order to be on stage. She sacrificed her child, and even then, the agency wanted nothing to do with her. When she wanted to settle down after the scandal and just live her life by raising a child, she found out she was unable to give birth. Being in the idol industry destroyed her life, and I personally felt sorry for her. She didn't have a choice in the matter. Even if she had the baby, her idol career would have been destroyed anyway, and she would have been harassed by the paparazzi. She was screwed 6 ways from Sunday, no matter if she did or didn't get the abortion. So Haruka is all she has left, and she is willing to do anything in order to make sure she's successful as an idol by guiding her in the right direction, even if it meant Haruka is unable to see Kiryu again. The point was to show she sacrificed a ton to be an idol, and was willing to do so. She even worked for Akiyama in construction work in order for her to get the loan to rent out the Japan Dome for Haruka's concert.
In 15 consecutive minutes, Mirai Park is shamed for having chosen her career over starting a family, is used to excuse spousal abuse.
Majima slapping Mirai isn't an excuse to use spousal abuse. This is never implied at all. There's even a line that says that she wanted Majima to actually be supportive of her, not that she deserved to get slapped. It's shown that they left on a sour note, and she wants to make amends by guiding and helping Haruka in her career, and the end goal being to perform at the Japan Dome. It's clear that Majima does now see her in this way, and it's why he was willing to fight for Kurosawa's entertainment at the end of the game so Haruka isn't killed. Even without Zero, Majima's earlier actions can be explained by Saejima. He was traumatized by what happened to Saejima and feels guilty for putting him in jail. Cause he didn't participate in the hit and it all being a setup. I don't have time to complain about rubber bullets right now. He was emotionally compromised when he was married to Mirai Park and she got the abortion without his knowledge. So imagine being in his position. Not only are you responsible for your Kyodai being locked up, lost an eye, and now your wife just had an abortion without telling you, taking away your hope for a family. he violently lashed out and left her. Mireille Park understood this because she knew Majima had ties to the Yakuza world, and most likely, as a partner, that information would have had to come out anyway. I mean, you're married to the mad dog of Shimano. Of course you would know. The game doesn't spell out that Majima's actions are wrong because it happened years ago. But remember, this is the same series where hitting women in any circumstances is heavily looked down upon. Most of the villains do it, and one of the only time Kiryu did this was to Haruka in Yakuza 1. But even then, he felt disgusted about it. And that's mostly because he was mirroring Date when he did that to his daughter in a different context. It's not the game showcasing that
she had made the wrong decision for her future,
or trying to take a stance on abortion in order to fearmonger women into not getting abortion. No, really, this is an actual argument he made in the comments. It's criticizing how shit the idol industry treats their talent, and how uncaring the general public or paparazzi is of this as well. I mean, have you watched Perfect Blue? One example is one of my favorite scenes in the game, which features the villain, Mireille Park. When Haruka goes to buy a brooch for Mireille off the clock, T-Set shows up in order to intimidate and bully her by trashing her and Mireille Park, explaining she had a failed career. The competition is fixed and what have you. Haruka tries to de-escalate the situation, but they only escalate it further by threatening to end her career and blackmail her. Haruka begs them to stop, but luckily Mireille arrives on the scene. Mireille, in a surprise twist, actually tells Haruka to go ahead and beg for forgiveness. Did anyone ever question why? Well, you don't have to because Mireille explains it herself. T-Set didn't realize that people always have their eyes out. Idols are on the clock even when they are off it. And doing this while making a scene, especially when they are being watched by so many people, as social media is only damaging during our own career. They immediately look around and then they are leaving while coping and seething. And just to rub salt on the wound, Mireille flat out roasts T-Set for their arrogance, and this moment is why she became one of my favorite females in the series. She indirectly insults their ability because of how low they stoop to bully Haruka. Where she interrupts them and telling them to go hone their abilities, that's her telling them they suck. I'm not expecting Haruka to fucking tiger drop T-Set and throw them into the Sotenbori River, but it's such a satisfying and empowering scene that always gets overlooked. Even still, the world of RGG treats her as the complete opposite. Did you just forget Haruka's interactions with her? The brooch, in a way, is symbolic. Even if the world and idol industry has stepped on Mireille and left her to die, the people who actually knew her saw her as strong, beautiful, and caring. Akiyama just flat out says it too.
パクミレイという女は自分から死ぬような人間じゃない。
はい。
Haruka ended up in the same situations Mireille did by prioritizing family, and she suffered the consequence of it. Would it have been a better choice to stick with being an idol and hiding it? That's all up to interpretation, because Haruka also been unhappy with being an idol and being far apart from her family at the orphanage. Hence why the end of Yakuza 5, she's willing to admit this. This is why I love the story of Ryuga Gotoku games. Even when Yakuza 5 is my least favorite title story-wise, there are still themes and complex issues to dissect in these games. A video like this spreads misinformation about these characters and theming of the games when you take what they say at face value and don't analyze their roles in the story. Speaking of misinformation, GC's take on Haruka is just misleading if you haven't played Yakuza 5. So Haruka is helpless because she remains innocent and pure throughout Yakuza 5, and the honest explanation is said by GC himself.
She represents Kiryu's own innocence and hope.
Well, yeah, because she does. But that is only representative of her as a character, and not what every woman in Yakuza should strive to be. While Kiryu is the tough man with a rough exterior but a heart of gold, Haruka is that heart of gold.
But Yakuza 5 takes this idea to a ludicrous degree by refusing to allow Sawamura to stand up for herself during conflict.
Oh hey, you're showing a scene where Haruka is standing up for herself during conflict.
She never stands up for herself against the rival idol group, T-Set.
This is untrue. Point is that you destroy them at the Princess League and they see how passionate she is in her performance. And that's how they apologize and become part of her performance. The best revenge is huge success. And that's how Haruka rolls.
And when she's swept away off to the world of idol culture, her reasons for wanting to do so are unclear.
Mireille Park's role in the story is to be the reality check for Kiryu. She convinced Kiryu at the beginning because of his involvement with not only Haruka, but the rest of the orphanage would also doom their lives with his ties to himself and the Yakuza. They don't want to leave him and move on to be better than him. This is why Haruka decides to go along with it. She knows that she not only can be a shining beacon to Kiryu, but the entire world.
In fact, Ryuga Gotoku 2 has a very important cutscene which sums up her entire character arc in Yakuza 5 in about 2 minutes.
なんで勝手に決めるの？冗談じゃないわよ。
お父さんは君の人生のためを考えて。
私は今のままで十分幸せなの。
You forget to mention that with Yakuza 2, things really did change. We had 2 games where Kiryu was swept up in Yakuza deals, especially Yakuza 3, where Morning Glory was destroyed and Haruka was traumatized by Kiryu being stabbed by Hamazaki. While she did forgive him at the end of Yakuza 4, and that character development is shown in Yakuza 5 as she's forgiving towards T-Set in the game. It goes to show that if Kiryu was to stay at Morning Glory, her life and the lives of the other kids at the orphanage is threatened. Even with the events of Yakuza 5, in the idol world, despite her being harassed by the media, she is a legend for doing what she did. Sub-stories in Yakuza 6 paint her in this light, with fans who didn't care she was raised by Yakuza, upcoming idols who realized they had to sacrifice in order to become one, and hell, even the simps who were touched by their music. She is only able to find peace and move on with the end of Yakuza 6, where Kiryu is dead and out of the picture. So she and Yuta can raise Haruto and begin starting anew without Kiryu's influence. Man, I can't wait for GC to make a video about Yakuza 6, completely understanding the point and character motivations behind the characters in that game. I'll get to certain topics I want to address later, but the main section of this video is the Yakuza 0 section. GC addresses 2 sub-stories and claims misogyny on them while actively avoiding the points of them. He just says they happen and it's bad because women are berated in these sub-stories without actually going to the depth or the point of their actions.
Women are often berated for saying anything, or in other cases, flat out treated like garbage, often such treatment being the focal point of the story. Here's a sub-story where a woman lacks the common sense to finish a simple crossword puzzle and is yelled at by the man trying to cleverly propose to her.
Crosswords is a Majima sub-story where a young couple, Kosaku and Shizuku, are trying to solve a crossword puzzle, and Shizuku is having trouble solving this puzzle. Kosaku from the very beginning is portrayed as being intense because he is very adamant about trying to have her solve it, but can't give a reason why she shouldn't give up. When Majima steps in, he pulls him aside to admit that the puzzle is his way of proposing to her. Majima decides to help Shizuki, and then you start solving the puzzle with her. If you choose the right answer, Kosaku will praise the both of you and you'll move on. If you choose the wrong answer, he will scold Shizuku for not being able to figure it out and say the correct answer to her instead. No matter if you choose right or wrong, the sub-story will end the same. The sub-story ends with the answer spelling out, marry, telling Shizuku that Kosaku wants to marry her. The lack of intelligence actually comes from Kosaku in this sub-story, because trying to put your feelings out by making your girlfriend do a crossword puzzle instead of just doing it is ridiculous. I mean, when he gets frustrated, he gets unreasonably pissed about it, which makes him look like an even bigger idiot when it's revealed that Shizuku knew the answers to the puzzle, but was waiting on him to actually tell her that they should marry. She played him like a fiddle, and got him to actually use his words to propose to her. This isn't just one line taken from the sub-story. That was the main point of the sub-story. She scolds him for being so evasive about his feelings and for making her go through all that. Instead of going through hoops to cleverly propose, just say what you need to say. At the end of the sub-story, Kosaku admits he was wrong, vows to never make a crossword puzzle again, and convey his emotions, learning from his mistakes and shortcomings and further strengthening his bond with his now fiancée.
Here's a restaurant intern being berated by her head chef for being incompetent, and even when she's proven herself, gets no apology and suffers more ridicule.
With Komien's friendship, that friendship has Majima befriending a chef and his assistant Nozomi. Nozomi is constantly scolded by him because of his strict judgment. However, every time, Majima steps in telling him to chill out. He tries her cooking, says it's good, but as the friendship progresses, the chef gets in an accident, and now there's a reservation coming up soon. She needs ingredients to cook for them. Majima goes fishing to catch the ingredients, and she cooks up and they have a good meal. The chef isn't in his right to be yelling at her. That's why every other character calls him out on it. Even in his own friendship bio, Majima refers to him as being old school, for better or worse. The game portrays him as in the wrong whenever he is cruel to Nozomi by Majima, and to an extent, the other regulars. When he does taste the food, he does praise her for how she handled the situation. While he does say it isn't as good as me, that's more of the Gordon Ramsay speaking in him, that's not also what he wanted to dwell on. He apologizes for how he was treating her and not training her properly because he admits he was wrong in his judgment, and that she just genuinely wanted to make the customers of the restaurant to have a good time. While he goes to thank Majima, Majima wants him to thank Nozomi instead. He was embarrassed, so instead he just says, "I'm gonna drill everything about cooking into your head and that'll be hell." Majima calls him out again, saying someone's too embarrassed to say what they mean, and they laugh it off. Both Nozomi, Majima, and the chef are on a level of understanding that they can laugh it off because they understand he can't say what he means with words, but he's still thankful for her. He even stumbles when he said he was trying to drill it in. There is still a level of respect being portrayed here. It's why after you beat the friendship, you will see them together when you revisit the restaurant.
Here's a teenage girl selling used panties as a side hustle, which is already really skeevy because of minors being involved, getting assaulted by a stalker, and then being blamed for her stalker's actions.
Underneath it all is a sub-story with Kiryu finding out about an underground Viscera ring by high school students. Kiryu finds a couple bickering, and the boyfriend has suspicion that his girlfriend Mina is selling her body because of all the money she's been randomly getting. When you confront Mina, she admits she's been selling her used underwear, and has been wanting to quit, but her friend Sachiko will not let her quit her ring. When you confront Sachiko, she just brushes off Kiryu's criticism with, "They make money, it isn't illegal, and the people get what they want." It's not a sexism issue because even that's addressed with Sachiko's own line.
"It's fine for men to sell their underpants, but not women? That's blatant gender discrimination. It's the 80s, man. Time to stop thinking so old school."
These are minors selling their sex just to get cash, trying to play the world of adults. They are also profiting off pedophiles and disgusting men who will take advantage of them if they aren't careful. This kind of thing still happens today, especially in the gaming industry, so we see the result of that. One of her customers, a creepily assessed man, comes to Sachiko with a knife yelling that he loves her and assaults her. Kiryu steps in and beats him up. Kiryu warned her, and 5 seconds later she saw what could potentially happen to not only her, but all other girls involved. Even so, Kiryu saw it right to step in when she was getting assaulted after all the excuses she made, because while she was being naive, no kid deserves to go through that. She then shuts down the ring, admitting she didn't realize how wrong this ring was, while apologizing to Mina for forcing her into it. Sachiko is right to be blamed for her stalker's actions, because she is a minor trying to run a sex business without understanding why it's wrong to do this. Her Viscera ring further endangered the multiple girls she partnered with, especially when the type of men who are their customers will begin to take advantage of them, or even worse, do unspeakable things to them. What we saw in the game was only the tip of the iceberg. This type of Busera ring shouldn't exist at all, yet multiple rings in the world do. She is a kid who got way in over her head and unfortunately had to learn the hard way.
It then follows through by making said woman lose control following the death of another character and put herself into a situation no other human being would have reasonably done, even under emotional duress. All of this to give one of our main characters strong enough motivation to undergo a drastic change, a condition easily achieved without assassinating a character the narrative had done such a great job building from the get-go.
GC also downplays Makoto's character development for the sake of the people who haven't played the game, but in doing so, failed at analysis. If you're going to talk about this, you need full context and understanding of the story if you want to have these claims. The other character he mentions happens to be Makoto's brother, Tetsu Tachibana. This part of the story is about how they both wanted the chance to meet each other since they were long-lost siblings, but constantly having that opportunity being taken away by the Yakuza, which forces Makoto into action to perform rash actions after he was brutally murdered with a sledgehammer before she got to meet him. After being blinded for her entire life and having the only family she loves taken away from her, she actively seeks vengeance for Tachibana, even trying to get Majima to kill the lieutenants, but he declines, and she wants to take matters into her own hands. She was sick of being pushed around by so many people that at her lowest point tried to bargain with scumbag Dojima just to get vengeance. She thought she had nothing left and acted rashly in a way she thought she'd get peace quickly by her own hand. Even before her brother's death, she was unsure about her entire life. She already lost Lee, not sure where Majima was at, and was chased by the Shiwabusa family and held at gunpoint by Oda. She has escaped death multiple times, but this is catching up with her. After Tachibana's death, her eyesight started to return, and the irony of this is that while she can physically see, metaphorically she becomes blind. Blinded by vengeance because she wanted the 3 lieutenants' lives after she took away the one she cared about. This isn't character assassination because even through her rash actions, she actually becomes stronger. After recovering, she's shown in the epilogue as a result of what she's been through. Makoto learned to stand up for herself while she stands boldly in front of some low-ranking Yakuza. Notice how in this epilogue scene, she doesn't get intimidated. She is unmoving and actually slaps both of these men for harassing her and her friend on the street. We have gone from a weak, frail woman who was sex trafficked and had to be guided and pushed around throughout her entire life, to a lady who is strong-willed to stand up for what she believes in and protect the people she loves and cherishes. GC just says only Majima experiences development, but completely leaves out Makoto's development and how far she's progressed as a result of the narrative.
Yakuza is also famously transphobic, and Zero is no exception. The Pleasure King character, whether designed to be a drag queen or trans woman, it's a little ambiguous so it's honestly hard to tell, is constantly misgendered, at least by the localization, and is modeled and characterized in an unflattering way in line with many transphobic depictions of trans women.
GC claims that his representation was ambiguous, despite the game referring to him with male pronouns, having the title of the Pleasure King, and insisting that the Pleasure King is a trans woman. Both the 5 millionaires and 4 stars are strictly males. Does this mean they could have written a woman in these roles to have one? Possibly, but that's not what we got. There is a line when you're first introduced to him. Yamanoi claims that he's a woman's soul inside of a man's body. And this is where I assume the trans comparison comes from. Looking through the comments, I saw GC hearted this comment that brings up this line. But in the context of this discussion, Yamanoi was talking about how he was able to understand the desires and instincts of men and women for his business, and own his own properties. Not about how he personally feels. It's about how the Pleasure King used his sex business to be successful and get what he wants. This is very similar to what Jungi Han does with Stardust in Yakuza 6. Unless there is Japanese text referring to this, and if there is, please put it in the video next time. You fight the Pleasure King as well, and that is consistent with Kiryu's mindset. Kiryu would never hit a woman, period. Unless you count this Yakuza 3 sub-story which was transphobic, and I'm glad it got removed in the PS4 remaster.
The Mama of Earth Angel of Bar and Kamurocho's Champion District shares the same physiological depictions of the aforementioned characters and has been in the series since its beginning. At no point have they ever gone back and redesigned her as a gesture of good faith.
But why would they? Mama identifies as a woman, she is referred to as a woman, and going back to redesign her would be overlooking and rewriting history. She's a reoccurring side character in the series, and doing so just because she shares physical attributes with other characters is disingenuous. Earth Angel's Mama was just there in the original games, and never got sub-stories until Yakuza 0. She is a trans woman from the very start of the series. She was always referred to she, her pronouns, and even if it was a bar that was accepting of transgender patrons, it was still open to the public, and it's why Kiryu can drink there. Just because she shares a body type with future characters made after her doesn't mean she should be redesigned. For someone who claims to do a lot of research, most of my points have just been referencing the games, not articles, interviews, or anything. I look how the work is presented to me and make my conclusions. How am I able to bring up all this without searching for weeks in articles? So there's a point in the video where GC talks about how much research he did.
I mean, I spend an entire day using the
about
Wayback
2 to 3
Machine
days
for
for
6
Yakuza
hours
0.
each
I
day.
read through
Internet
articles,
articles,
But if you're going to talk about the treatment of women in Ryuga Gotoku games, why didn't you talk about the second time a Ryuga Gotoku game let you take control of a woman? In Chapter 7 of Judgment, there's a point in the story where you get to play as Sayori, one of the female leads of the game. This point of the story is for her to go undercover as a hostess in order to get information about the case. As Yagami, you go around Kamurocho with her, and you get to dress her up as a hostess. Once you step outside and go to walk to Queen Rogue, something interesting happens. Instead of playing as Yagami during the walk, the game puts you in Sayori's shoes. You and Yagami walk to Queen Rogue while 4 characters comment on Sayori's appearance. I want to focus on the very first one, because I think both versions the translation comes out very well. In the Japanese version, the line he says translates to, "Fuck, she's hot." In the English dub of the game, the line was changed to this.
Hey, smile for me, beautiful.
Localizer Scott Strickart goes into further explanation in a Polygon article on why he did this.
In a weird way, I saw something of an educational experience here, because our player base is primarily male, and I do kinda hope that being thrust into the first-person perspective of a woman being catcalled felt a little gross. I hope there's some level of sympathy for Sayori, and on the larger scale, empathy for women who deal with it on a regular basis.
He continues that while the literal translation of the line, "fuck, she's hot," doesn't particularly come across as verbal harassment to an English viewer, that's why it was adapted to "smile for me." And for the game in both markets to introduce a scene like this to players highlighting the treatment of women like this is pretty powerful, and showed that this does happen to women no matter where you are in the world. Kamurocho itself is also a dirty city, so this kind of scene would be perfect in showcasing this. Now, of course, this did get the response you would expect from people who didn't play the actual game, but most players were happy with this change and felt it fit the scene very well. This scene in both versions was supposed to show the ugly side of Kamurocho. Strickart admits that this isn't a one-to-one translation, but the intent is still there. I think I can agree with Strickart's last line.
I guess I couldn't fathom the arrogance.
Why did you not bring this up at all? This is a recent RGG game. It has sold 1 million units worldwide, making it one of the best-selling RGG games, and like Zero, introduced new players to the series, without them needing prior knowledge of the series. This is on the same site you pulled that review from, in which Scott talks exactly about this. If a RGG fan hasn't played Zero, most likely they have played Judgment. I mean so much that it's getting a sequel with a worldwide release this month. If your excuse is that you haven't played Judgment, then you should have really put this video on the back burner because it wouldn't have aged well. This would have been perfect for your video, especially since this is part of the main topic and the final message to it. To critique, you need to present both the good and the bad the series does in order to do so. Now, I have been being a bit harsh, but the section I did fully agree with was the women's right in Japan part. And honestly, it's because he's right. Many people have been trying to claim women's right is a Western issue, when it's a global issue. I agree, it's juvenile to think this way, and there are particular fans of video game series that do so, and want to claim not to shove your politics into our games, when all these games are political and have things to say of our society. I mean, even when I went over to watch Riona's story from Yakuza 3, there were racist fans who actually missed the entire point of her story. We should be having this discussion, and gamers need to be more open to critiquing the games they play. One particular thing I do want to praise is that RGG actually does have female staff working on their team. There are composers that have written a lot of the most iconic tracks in the series. You know, I'm sorry, I like music, so I bring this up. Snowiest Angry Man has a great video series that shows the appreciation for the Yakuza composers. I honestly don't care if you agree or disagree with this video. I just want to shout him out because this is a fantastic series. I am not affiliated with him, I just like watching his videos, okay? Thank you. If you noticed, I think very highly of the women in RGG games. I mean, I spent half of this video defending them and why they're strong-willed and smart in their own ways. In my opinion, RGG has also had examples of strong women in its story starting from the very first game. Yumi, for example, was someone who, despite being manipulated by so many men in her life, stood up to Jingu, Haruka's father, who wanted her dead, and helped reveal his money laundering scheme. She hid 10 billion yen under everyone's noses, and at the end of the game was strong-willed enough to sacrifice herself for Kiryu and Haruka, the people she truly loved. Yayoi Dojima, wife of Sohei Dojima, only has a stub story in the original game, but in Yakuza 2 became acting chairwoman of the Tojo clan for a majority of the game. She is the one constantly giving orders around the Tojo clan, and will stand up for herself and the clan while being constantly intimidated by the Omi Alliance by Ryuji, or the Jingwon Mafia. By seeing Kiryu's strength and her leadership, that's what inspired her son, Daigo Dojima, to become the 6th chairman of the Tojo clan. Hana from Yakuza 4 is a really endearing character during Akiyama's story, who is shown to help Akiyama run Sky Finance, keep him in check, an incredible singer, and is a capable fighter herself. Sure, some jokes about her being heavyset hasn't aged well in the game because of that society, but despite all that, she still stands as a very strong and capable woman herself, who always ends up as a fan favorite for people who played Yakuza 4. And knowing some viewers, they would argue that the game fat shames Hana, especially with the ending. However, sub-stories where Akiyama flat out told her she doesn't have to lose weight and should be happy with her body, and the ending clearly shows that she was starving herself when she wasn't with Akiyama, as that isn't encouraged. Dead Souls retconned this too as well. This doesn't mean that RGG is immune to criticism when it comes to this particular subject. What I'm confused by is that Yakuza 4 was only shown in footage, and what isn't mentioned at all despite story-wise having some of the strangest choices for the female lead, Yasuko Saejima. She is literally used as a plot device. Honestly, I'm surprised you didn't bring her up because in my opinion, she is the most poorly handled female in the series. I get they were trying to go for a femme fatale angle, but man, they messed up royally. She makes the worst decisions in the entire game for the sake of the plot, and causes more trouble for the other characters, for honestly, no reason at all. She goes on an entire murder plot just to see Saejima, And also, when Kiryu told her to stay at Serena to make sure she doesn't do anything stupid, guess what she does? She drugged Date and then runs off to go see Saejima and Katsuragi, which sure results in her and Katsuragi's death, but there's barely any redemption for her. Here you can't really make an excuse that she was emotionally compromised, because, well, she did want to see Saejima again, but still actually made the worst decisions to make drama just for the writers to develop these characters. It was emotional manipulation with Yasuko's death in Yakuza 4, but the issue is, the players saw it coming, and since it was Yatsuko, they didn't fall for it because of its poor storytelling. Yakuza 4 has a ton of this, and I know you know. You see, I can be critical of RGG, and Yakuza 4 happens to be my favorite RGG title out of the PS3 trilogy. And while I didn't find problems with the particular sub-stories that GC mentioned in his videos, certain ones I do feel in recent RGG games are worthy of criticism. In Judgment, there's a series of sub-stories where there's a group of perverts roaming around the city harassing women for comedic reasons. You help the victim and their brother locate the perpetrator known as Giant Impact because of his... When you locate him doing his terrorist things, he runs off and you give chase. After taking him down, it's revealed that he's a 78-year-old man with a built body and... yeah. Anyways, you fight him, and the cutscenes afterwards explain why he became Giant Impact. Basically, he's a virgin, and it was the only way he can get his testosterone levels up, and he gets turned on by a woman's shrieks. Yagami, in response, doesn't really say anything while he just falls asleep. While he's explaining this, the game plays the sad sub-story music over this, and it isn't really justified. Back at the office, Yagami and Yosuke surprisingly start to feel sorry for him, saying that who wouldn't turn into a monster after 78 years in isolation? While his sister says, let's try not to humanize a pervert. And then the sub-story ends. The problem with this sub-story is that Giant Impact isn't properly punished for his actions or shouldn't be given any pity. Instead of just saying, this is bad, let's write a counter-solution for this problem that could have made the ending of this sub-story better. His sob story should have been countered by Yagami going in like a Kiryu-like rant about what he was doing was gross, go off on how he wasted his life being a pervert rather than trying to better himself as a human being, and finding love that way instead of giving into perversions. The sub-story could have ended with A. He is apprehended by the police and he will be happy to serve a sentence for his crimes, or B. Shut down his ring and disappear. Heck, if you went with the B route, you could continue the sub-story in another game where he has to help stop a new group of perverts, kinda like how the Munan Kohet plot from Zero got a sub-story sequel in Yakuza 6. Also, just remove Yosuke's line, cause man, it's just awful. His sister should have been the one in control of the conversation. Also, RGG Studios, if you're going to write romances, please make them better. I beg of you. I love Like a Dragon, but certain romance scenes are god-awful, oh my god. They aren't really given any thought. I mean, the development of these romances has Ichiban just buying flowers and throwing them at the girls. Then you get a final romance scene. Sumire has her dad coming back to take over the shop, and when Ichiban beats him up, it's implied that he's given a handjob. That's it. No chemistry or connection is made. Just, you saved me, here's your reward. It's really disappointing for a mechanic like Sumire to get such a poorly written scene. Same with Miyakoshi. You give her flowers, pass the vocational school, and she gives you a reward just cause he likes you, while Ichiban just robs Akari from his crush. Like, that in itself feels out of character for Ichiban to do. This is a downgrade from how previous games would handle romance. With hostesses, you actually had to talk with them, learn more about them, and spend time by going on dates with them. Similar to Judgment, although I do wish some of the bachelorettes were older because it's kinda awkward for this 35-year-old man to be dating college girls. That's why I liked Amane out of all of them, because she at least felt in Yagami's age range. Oh crap, I got off topic. Anyways, point is that RGG isn't immune to criticism, and for certain sub-stories should be more clear on the side they are taking so it's not confusing in that way. I don't mind if the material makes the player feel gross, but if you're going to evoke that feeling, validate it with the writing in your game. The video concludes by GC reiterating his points that RGG should strive to teach its men about being respectful to women, and teach its player base to become a better man. It has been doing this, but okay. The last segment honestly is kinda silly and overdramatic in my honest opinion, and his tone comes off more as demeaning to RGG Studios. Like, he probably didn't mean to come off that way, but that's how I saw it. Especially when he completely mischaracterized all the female characters in this video. Like, it's good to critique RGG, but like, my guy.
I do this in hopes of rising above them and becoming a better example.
The irony is that when he ends the video on this Kiryu quote,
壁を見つけて越えていく。人ってのは乗り越えることでしか成長できねえんだ。
he's then immediately challenged, and then he starts to fall apart. After the video was posted, GC took to Twitter after the backlash and immediately started responding to people. So looking through Twitter and the comment section, I noticed a pattern. Lots of what GC responds to, or loves comments, happens to start with thoughts from people who immediately start identifying themselves as women, either liked or somewhat disagreed with the video. That is fair. I do think a female's perspective on this topic should be more stronger and valued, as this video is the target audience this is for. However, what conflicts with the message of this video is that mostly anyone else who just had criticisms with the video, he immediately responds in a bitter way, instead of starting discussions or admitting those faults. Here are a few examples.
Right or wrong, this guy doesn't take criticism well at all. Any counter-argument and he's out here name-calling. Trash attitude.
I don't give dumb bastards who want to argue the finer points of the male gaze to me. If it makes you uncomfortable, then I'm out the gate being an asshole to people used to having the privilege of being the assholes first. Tough shit, asshole.
Man, I used to have such respect for you, GC. You had some of the best classic game reviews, and I loved your Yakuza retrospective. But damn, are you ever being a tool to the people who have legit complaints about your video.
I don't need respect from people who want to excuse bad writing by pretending it's actually totally fine. I've had conversations with people on my video's comments who disagree with me. I just don't owe you the benefit of the doubt. Deal with it. Also, who are you?
I don't know. Who are you? Because I see a man who is obsessed with trying to prove a point about a video game. A man who is attacking people for pointing out flaws in his video. A man who is being defensive for the sake of it. I'll tell you who I am. Just a guy who has fun.
One particular comment I want to bring up is this. He agrees that he doesn't invalidate women who don't agree with him. However, just watch.
You're absolutely right. It doesn't invalidate women who don't agree with me. Though, women who don't agree with me don't invalidate the women who do either, right? Glad you're enjoying the comedy. The more people who argue with me, the better this video is doing. It's great. In fact, thanks for the quote retweet. Twitter loves that algorithm shit. They love long conversation chains of people arguing. It generates impressions, which, long term, gives this video more attention and eyes to look at it. This is the best performing video yet. So sincerely, thank you for helping me spread awareness of Yakuza's glaring issue and the way it treats its women characters. You're doing the conversation a great justice for spreading it around, and I couldn't be happier with all the help you and everyone else has been.
This comment is laughably hilarious and just screams seething. However, I want to point this section out. So women are validated when they agree with him, but here, he completely invalidated a woman just because she didn't agree with the video or what was said.
I'm a woman who absolutely loves the Yakuza series. I have played them all. Platinum all. Couldn't watch more than about half your video. You seem very badly informed about the games, how the stories developed, and the era and society they are set in. Furthermore, don't you think you are rather arrogant and misogynistic by telling us women how we should be portrayed, how we should act, and how badass we should be to be accepted to you in a video game?
Hi, you don't know me, but I happen to be covering the entire series on my channel in depth. I'm very, very well informed about the society these games are made in. I criticize that society, just as people in that society have been criticizing it. With all due respect, I take great offense to being told I don't understand the series. I've spent a lot of time researching the series, and while I understand that, as a man, I cannot take personal offense to women being misrepresented. I refuse to concede that they aren't. Most women who watch my channel, or know me personally, or follow me on Twitter or my Twitch stream, have come to me with their concerns about these exact issues in these games. So while I don't want to diminish what you're saying, I also am not going to validate it. It doesn't invalidate women who don't agree with me. I also am not going to validate it. It doesn't invalidate women who don't agree with me. I also am not going to validate it.
As you can see, this is why this video took so long. This could actually be explained in a comment he made.
I can't blame you for assuming I was being a dick on Twitter, but if it helps, I deliberately chose to clap back in that fashion for this specific video. I fully expected to see a lot of random accounts try to diminish what was being said or reduce it to buzzwords and calling people names, and that's what I got. I got a lot of people who didn't bother watching what I made, responding to me with intense vitriol just because of the idea I was criticizing the series. Once the floodgates opened, I came out swinging. I have a zero-tolerance policy for misogyny and sexism, and the contrarians on Twitter who attempt to dismiss examples of that by being reductionists. Sorry for giving you the wrong impression, but I hope knowing I'm not usually like that will convince you to stick around long enough for me to prove it to you. But I'm glad you watched it, even if you didn't agree with everything. That's what it's all about.
If you're trying to do this, as a creator, you have failed at attracting potential people who have a chance to listen to you. This mindset makes your final point minute. There are some points where it's okay to clap back, but immediately going in with the mindset to do so hurts your reputation. Sure, you're gonna get people who won't want to listen to you, but when they see how you act, your potential viewers will not want to listen to you. You know why it took me a while to watch it? It's because how you were acting on Twitter. Now, to give GC some benefit of the doubt, this is an emotional reaction. It's pretty obvious it was, considering how much he started posting about analytics. He immediately blamed the viewers for the poor reception instead of his own research and analysis of the characters. He was so reacted that he ended up posting the same image of his comment twice on the same tweet. This tweet is still up from when the video was posted. Your interactions tell me a lot about your character. You took to Twitter after all this backlash and immediately started responding to criticism at an unhealthy rate. You had an entire thread showing your YouTube statistics and the algorithm. You would only like or retweet tweets that showed easy support like, "This was a good video." You even liked and retweeted people who admitted they haven't played the series, yet claim that RGG has this problem, and just because these replies are salty. Look, I'm fine with you taking a passive interest in a series and watching videos like this. Do what you want. But to give a critique of something, I kindly ask you to actually experience it first. Let's be honest. From this video being my only experience from him and what I'm seeing on Twitter, does GC look like someone who cares about the critique of women in the series, or someone who now just wants to pick fights? I do appreciate GC bringing this discussion to the forefront, but how can I argue against someone who doesn't want to take criticism from someone like me, who only wants a female perspective and completely goes to shut down people who have a conversation with him, who admits to removing essay-long comments just because they didn't agree with a video, who claims to do research of the series but actively avoids articles and purposely leaves out information in order to manipulate the audience and make his point stronger, who bumped his video multiple times just because of the algorithm and just bragged about how many views the video got. If you truly had an intent to raise discussion about this issue, you wouldn't be so hostile and adamant against people criticizing your misinterpretations of the scenes. You would be continuing the discussion, rather than arguing and intentionally looking to clap back at people. You have to be willing to admit mistakes you made in analyzing pieces of work, and mistakes you made in people's judgments. You say you want to be like a dragon? Well, if you want to claim that the only way to grow to be challenged, how about this? Let me quote Yakuza's own writing, just like you did. during the pivotal moments of Kiryu himself becoming the Dragon of Dojima.
男の看板ってのは自分で設計図引いて作るようなもんじゃねえ。後から勝手についてくるもんだ。
I ask you to look back and admit faults in your own analysis. Look back on how you analyze these games rather than just making immediate assumptions that just because a woman is not portrayed as physically strong, look deeper into her character. Also, before I leave GC, let me give you one little piece of advice.
実力は嘘をつかない。ライバルを恐れるのは自分たちの実力に自信が持てないからよ。
誰がそんな子ライバルだなんて思ってないわ。
だったらはるかに関わってなんかいないで自分たちの芸を磨くことね。可愛いだけのアイドルじゃすぐに飽きられるわよ。
Hey everyone, the video's over, so we're here for the video. You can click off now. I wanted to give like a special shout outs and credits for this video. I'm too lazy to actually do it, like, you know, with editing and what have you. So I'm just gonna, and also I want to give some updates anyway. So first off, big shout outs to jrstan who was able to voice some lines, and he also helped me out with editing this video down, and he helped me make the thumbnail for this video, which was pretty cool. I also want to give a big shout out to Btw I for providing his voices to this video, as well as Bronze as well. Other people I would like to shout out, like Joeyjoejoejoejoe. That is the worst name I've ever heard. Yes, it is a Simpsons reference, of course. BlackRockShadow for voicing GC in the tweets you saw. Lydz for providing some woman voices. As well as the people who wanted to remain anonymous. You know who you are, and I'm very thankful for you. I know it's been a while since my last video. It feels like it's been 2 months. It's definitely around that time. And the reason being is because I moved. I am in my own apartment now. So I've been doing a lot of things by myself. I know the audio for this video was kind of weird in comparison to my other stuff because, you know, new setup. I was recording at my desk instead of being in a closet like I usually am, and that's looking to change probably in the next video. I had no idea how long this video was going to take. I didn't realize it was such a big undertaking. I've worked on this script for since July, around late July. And now that it's out, I am ready to be done with it. I want to move on. Believe it or not, I hate making negative videos. Like, you know, the Monster Hunter one was one I made at a negative time. This one, you know, it was just kind of something that's been really, yeah, it's been on my head for a long time, and I wanted to finally just get my thoughts and opinions out. Going forward, I pray that I will never do a video like this ever again because, like I said, it was super exhausting. I'm not even gonna lie. It's like a lot of my friends actually tried to check up on me and ask me if I was okay during like the editing process and how much I was really going into it. And I kind of repeated bad behaviors that I never want to do ever again because I feel like really tired and I stayed up to like a lot of like long times doing this, and I never want to do this ever again. Oh yeah, special thanks to the merchant for also providing his Yakuza 3 save file on PC. Yes, I have played Yakuza 3, I have the proof, but I was trying to record the game on PC just for like, what, 10 seconds of something or whatever. But still, I'm really thankful for that as well. Like I said, I don't ever want to do a video like this again. I know that Lost Judgment comes out on Friday, but it's out now if you have it, if you have early access. I saw Freedom Planet 2 finally got a release window, so I'm really excited about that. I want to going forward, I just want to keep making positive stuff. I want to talk about the things I like. I don't want to talk about things I hate. I don't want to respond to any videos. I just let this one, yeah. Anyways, again, thank you for watching. If you're new here, I encourage you to subscribe. You don't have to if you don't want to. If you agreed or disagreed with the video, that's fine. I would like to add the discussion in the comments. I know I came across as vitriolic to GC or whatever, but honestly, if we want to have a nice discussion about it, I am completely open to it. Anyways, this is something I've been wanting to do ever since, freaking last week. Now that I'm freaking done with this video, Let's play some video games.